Here on Kiwi. Well, it's time now to catch up with Mark Mishmash, who is the an architecture lecturer at Unitec. He's been on the show a couple of times before. Last time we were catching up, in fact, when he was in Haiti, over there with a bunch of students for Architecture for Humanity, and he's back now. In fact, he came back just before Christmas. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, so reflecting on your time there, how do you think it went, and how do you think the students handled the situation over there?
It went really, really well. It actually, in a lot of ways, it went better than I could have expected. We were given a lot more responsibility than I think we had planned on. When we got there, AFH kind of realized our students actually could make a significant contribution. They were kind of self-motivated and self-directed, so they were able to go work on projects, and they were given a lot more projects because of the level of skill that we brought. So from that end, it went really, really well. I think that it was really kind of eye-opening for a lot of the students, quite a few of whom had never been outside of New Zealand. So for them to go from this to that was
quite extreme.
Kind of quite extreme. Yeah, I think the first couple of days was a little bit of kind of shock, just having guns, and everywhere you kind of go is protected by security people with guns. So I think seeing that many guns for most New Zealanders was shocking.
Yeah, a real cultural experience as well. But what about the impacts that you guys could make there? Are there projects underway now?
Yeah, so we were quite fortunate. We worked on a couple of really good projects, I think, for the time we were there. We worked on a mapping project that was funded by the Kellogg's Foundation. And what happened in Haiti is Port-au-Prince is the main city, and it's where the most dense population is. And that's where a lot of the focus for the recovery has been, is on Port-au-Prince, which is really heavily damaged. And by and large, a lot of the kind of outlying rural communities have not been, I don't know the right way to say it, they haven't been kind of mapped and done demographics and different things on them. And so basically one of the tasks that we ended up getting, and that we spent quite a bit of time working on, was these mapping of these rural outlying areas. And up until that point, none of the mapping had been done. So much so that even like Google had done satellite mapping of it. But when you get on the ground, the street names were wrong, and you go into like we went into a con, and I think before we went into a con, there was like an aid station, a school, and a church, and they were the only three buildings on the entire map that you could find. And our students went in, and within 2 weeks we mapped kind of the whole village and all the outlying stuff. And then we also put information, we did it through an open mapping source, and we put information back on the internet that was then picked up by a German team, and they had built a GIS map within a week of us returning. So, and that's important work, because it actually helps the NGOs determine where need is.
Yeah.
They know where to put money and who needs help and where resources have to go. So it's really important work.
And last time you spoke of, there are frustrations there, things that hold back the reconstruction over there, materials, obviously money, funding.
The big problem with funding, believe it or not, there's a lot of international funding that's still there. It's just sitting in banks waiting. The big problem with funding, especially for big projects, is that there's no kind of organization in place to give money to. So there's no Department of Transportation or Roadworks Department or Transportation Department or City Water Treatment Department, Municipal Water Treatment Department, anything like that. So there's quite literally nobody to give money to. While we were there, the World Bank kind of stepped in, met with the new president, and said, if you get out of our way and let us build the roads, we'll fix all your freeways within 5 years. And the government said, okay, we'll just step out of the way. So, but I mean, it's quite literally that bad. I mean, that's one of the things that I think the students, I think that was the kind of the thing that took the longest to sink in, and it was barely sinking in as we left, is that in a lot of ways, I think people go to Haiti thinking they can fix something, like, oh, we'll go there and fix this for them. But it's not a thing that's going to be fixed in my lifetime or our students' lifetime for sure. It's kind of long term. It's a full generation out from fixing that situation.
Of course, like our own Christchurch as well. But did they have the same aftershock sequence as Christchurch?
Yeah, I think that theirs have settled down. There weren't really any tremors that I could really feel while we were there. I think they've settled down quite a bit, but it's still a pretty active area.
And that, as we know, for Christchurch, holds everything back as well.
Yeah. I think that they say they're pretty common for about a year afterwards. So they're just kind of at the point where they're settling down. We had a couple of seminars while we were there, and one of them was given by an engineer actually from Christchurch. He's down in Christchurch now, and he was talking about that kind of period of aftershock and how, it's the same thing that happened down in Christchurch. What was it? 6 months after the big quake, there was that second big, or 8 months, whatever it was after the quake, there was that second big aftershock that was actually a pretty good sized earthquake in of its own right that knocked a lot more stuff down. And it's like kind of same thing that they had over there, but they're finally kind of starting to mellow out.
And you were in Christchurch 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I mean, for a lot of people, the situation on the ground is bad, but are you able to say to people, well, at least you're in Haiti?
I was in Christchurch, I think, at the end of August or the beginning of September last year. And then I went to Haiti, and then I was down in Christchurch again just for one day. I was down there a week ago, last Friday. And from my perspective, and maybe it's just because I'm kind of back off the airplane from Haiti, I was just amazed at how fast things are progressing.
Right.
And maybe it's just because I'm used to looking at buildings that are still laying in the road and power poles that are just down for miles and miles. And so it was actually really kind of, it might sound bad, but it's kind of refreshing to see that they're actually have picked themselves up so well just from when I was down there before.
Yeah.
And I know they've got a lot to go. That really isn't saying like there's not a lot that has to happen there. And I think there's still a lot of questions with where people can build and a lot of anxiety around that kind of stuff. But it's pretty amazing that they've actually done as much as they've done.
Is your expertise being called on in any way to help out with planning?
Not so much in Christchurch. My kind of particular areas of interest are in building performance, and I've been particularly interested in housing, economical housing, and post-disaster housing. And so I think most of that, kind of by the time I got over here and started getting settled down, was already going on for Christchurch. So I haven't had very much involvement down there. We did try to do a project down there, but unfortunately they're in an area that's still kind of red zoned, and the people after that second big shock left. They just said, we're not going to build down here. So I think that there's a lot of anxiety. What actually was really surprising for me this last time I was in Christchurch was how many businesses seemed to be doing well. There were a lot more stores open, a lot more people on the street. It was actually really kind of nice to go and see that.
Bit of optimism on the ground, I guess. Now, you've also been involved with the Unitech Change Starts Here campaign that's been all over TV screens, and I think it's been quite an interesting thing to follow, to see the various students go through their year and then end up on the other side. One student having left the course and finished, and but some students still there. How do you think the campaign's gone yourself? And has it changed sort of your perspective on things at all?
I don't know if it's changed my perspective on the education. I think I was pretty just straightforward and honest on all the commercials. It's kind of how everything I said is what I kind of believe in with architecture and education. So I don't think that that's changed. But I think it's really brought a lot more awareness to kind of Unitech and what we're trying to do there. I think in the last few years, Unitech's really been making a push to improve and make the school a better architecture school. I think it's a pretty good architecture school, actually.
More relevant?
Yeah, and I think one of the things that's nice about it is they work so much with the architecture community, and they actually do architecture. I myself, in my education, I went to schools that were very practical and also schools that were very theoretical, and I think that you need to always strike a balance between. But for me, at the end of the day, architecture is about making things, about building, and I think Unitech, just like this thing with Haiti, it's an opportunity where students actually get a chance to go out and experience that. I don't know very many places, even where I went to school in the United States, where students would have a chance to go out and work on schools for children in a system that have never had schools, or the schools collapsed. And there's a lot of a lot of richness that comes to education that isn't necessarily found in a book.
Yeah, sure.
You know? And I think that there's other opportunities there as well. We build a building every year. There's a local architect, a pretty well-known architect. I knew him from the States before I came here, named Dave Strom. He works with Unitech, and they do a design-build studio every year. Students get to design and build a house for a real client. And I think that those kind of things maybe weren't as well known by the public before the ad campaign. And although they weren't necessarily featured in the ad campaign, I think we've got a lot more interest in Unitech, and then as they start to investigate, they start to see all these opportunities.
And you get recognised around the place now sometimes?
Yeah, I get recognized on buses by the drivers. Apparently the bus drivers watch a lot of Unitech commercials. Every time I get on a bus, I get recognized. We went to see Harry Potter, and they were running the ad on the big screen TV, and my kids, one of my younger boys, screamed, "Dad, you're on the thing," so they thought it was pretty cool.
That's pretty cool.
But yeah, a little bit of that, so...
Great. Well, it's been great to have you in to talk about what you guys have been up to, and we look forward to hearing more from you perhaps later on in the year as well. Mark Mishmash, who's an lecturer in architecture at Unitech